Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. Hey, everybody. Our goal has always been to provide you with a solution to addiction that doesn't require you to go to rehab, do any steps, or go to meetings.
Or even be stuck on MAT regimens for the rest of your life either. And we built a workshop that we did last week and the week prior. We did 4 of them, and we picked the best one for you. And so it's a 2.5-hour workshop. It's called The Solution to Addiction. And it's amazing. We cover how to deconstruct your binge construct, why you do the things you do, because that's one of the questions we get all the time. Why do I keep doing this? And we give the answer for that. And we give the solution, a way out, a path out that makes sense.
Absolutely. When you get the Solution to Addiction course, we now have it as a course, and you can go right to thefreedommodel.org. It's right at the top. It says the Solution to Addiction. When you get it, you also get the Solution to Addiction book that we just wrote and the accompanying workbook. And you get the Freedom Model for Addictions book and the Freedom Model for the Family as well within that course module.
Yeah. So you literally have all the information, plus we teach you. And it's a really empowering, powerful course.
It is. So go to thefreedommodel.org or go right into the Freedom Model mobile app. And you'll see that if you hit, I think, the Discover, you'll see that we have the Solution to Addiction there for you.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran.
And we wrote that.
We wrote the Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap with our colleague, Stephen Slate.
Yeah, we miss Stephen.
Oh, yeah, we do.
I do miss you, Stephen. I hope you watch this podcast.
I know he does. All right. So today, based on the title, we're going to talk about porn, masturbation, and orgasm, quote unquote, addiction, otherwise known as sex addiction or porn addiction. There's a lot of different terms for it. And the reason we're doing that is because we have an upcoming book coming out on that topic. We've created the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshops, and they are available as an in-app purchase now.
I think the reason we're doing this too is because they're like somebody in that world brought in the Freedom Model for Addictions, right?
Yeah.
And it started a Reddit stream, like, I don't know what you call that, a Reddit post, Reddit stream. And so we've had a huge influx of people coming in trying to solve their problem. And then we started looking into what's out there for those people, and it's horrible.
Yeah, so we've always coached on this topic, probably the last 10 years, and it was sporadic, but so much of the Freedom Model cross-pollinates as a solution to that problem because they're very similar. Substance use and
addiction.
Anything that is known as a quote unquote an addiction has the same mythology in Western culture.
Yep.
And with that said, I want to give the announcement about the upcoming book. So the way this is going to work is the same way that we developed the Freedom Model. People will message me from all over the world and they'll say, I can't believe how amazing and mind-blowing this book, The Freedom Model for Addictions, is. And I'm very proud of that. And I know Steve is too, and Michelle. The 3 of us worked for over 2 decades to write that book. but people say over 2 decades. How is that? And you have to understand there was 13 other attempts at that. There were 13 editions of research books and programs that we developed in our retreats over that 27 years, that first 27 years. And
so, and to be fair, you did write a 14th iteration of the original book that we threw out.
Yep.
And like they took 2 years writing that, and then we were like, it's not right. And that's how this was really born.
Yeah. So that it really was a 4-year final edit of all those editions. So I consider this the full 14th edition, although it's its own book, right?
It is. It
took everything we did and put it into one place the right way.
Yep.
So, but that process took all those years because we did something that really had never been done before in the substance use, quote unquote, addiction arena. And that's, I spent over a decade living with my guests, asking questions and figuring out patterns of behavior without infecting my mind with a lot of ancillary research for that first decade and a half. Meanwhile, eventually Steve showed up, Ryan showed up, and Michelle had been working with me from the beginning. The reason I'm giving this history lesson is so you understand what we're going to be doing with the PMO book, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I got to give this history so you understand. So the way I didn't want to, I had learned by being involved in AA, being led down a bad path with AA for nearly a decade, and then having to undo the AA paradigm, I learned that if I adopt current thinking, I'll get lost in the current thinking and I will adopt it. And it's just natural that you do that with an existing model. You think it's true. And then you spend all this time undoing mythology. So what I decided after having that experience for the first 12 years of basically climbing out of the current paradigm was I was just going to abandon all of it and just do my own thing with my guests and listen to the guests. And at that time we had 3 retreats. So me, Michelle, Steve would literally ask questions. And this is where we developed the cognitive behavioral education model of coaching, where we use the Socratic method. We ask questions and we ask and we ask and we ask and we ask the why behind the question. And then what you do is you figure out a person's patterns. They figure out their own patterns through the selective questioning, and then they figure out their solutions. Okay. And you happen to have, as the coach, a lot of research that can help guide them with the things that they're addressing. So with all that said, in that process of coaching, climbing out of AA, and really staying out of the research sort of field and doing my own research with my guests, I was able to write that book. And then Steve came in from a different perspective. He had all the outside research and was digging through that on his website, thecleanslate.org. And so when we melded these things together, we had the research that was corroborating my theories about things based on my interviews with my guests for, at that point, 27 years. So that process created the freedom model, and it created something that is mind-blowing. It is effective. It is affordable, and it's right. And I can say that with absolute total conviction, and I can look you in the eye and say that there isn't anything in this book that is made up nonsense or controlling, which is what all the other models are. Now, with all that said, what we're doing with the PMO audience is that although we had been coaching people on that for the last 10 years, it was sporadic. And then Jay, this fellow Jay, got us, he found us and started applying the freedom model in its raw version to his issues. And he's a popular dude. And it just took off like a rocket ship. All of a sudden, we had all these people piling into our app. and looking for a solution to their PMO problem. And we started coaching on a much more regular schedule. Now it's outpaced our substance use demographic, almost double the amount of influence we're having with people. So now, before I go on any further, do you have anything that you
Well,
want
I
to jump
just,
in with?
I think that's primarily because even the DSM doesn't recognize sex addiction. And there's a reason for that.
And we're glad about that.
We're
by the way.
so glad about that. And so it is, there isn't, it hasn't, bursted on the scene in the treatment industry. There isn't a ton of money being invested into it yet. So we're thankfully on the front end of this. I mean, with respect to substance use addiction and even gambling addiction at this point, things like that, we came in late to the game because there was already something for us to fully debunk. With this, thank goodness. Now, the damage that's been done, though, to the young people is frightening, especially the young people who are worried that they have a problem. They start Googling it. They start looking for things. They find NoFap.
Right.
And on all of a sudden, and we see it now, people are emailing us. I mean, this is continuous, saying, my problem was a once a day problem. I read NoFap and I was doing it 5 times a day or more. I lost my job. They read this misinformation and then all of a sudden they feel out of control.
Yeah. So we're right on the very beginning of the addiction paradigm infecting what is a natural, masturbation is natural, sex obviously is natural, and looking at pornography or looking at naked people having sex is natural. And so
common.
And common. It's very almost universal. So there's these ideas that are being in this sort of brain-centered, treatment-centered, biologically hacked-centered model that is wrong. It's just wrong. And we can say it's wrong because there's plenty of research that shows that it's wrong. And our experience coaching people now for about a total of about 12 years has shown that to be true. So the way we're going to offer the book. So the book should be done in about a month. And it will be posted as part of the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop.
Yes.
That will be the only way you can get it. Much like the only way you could get our first iterations of our books for 27 years was by coming to the retreat. Now, I'll tell you why that is. Until I have years of testing every single thing that we do with a fine-tooth comb, with the coaching process and with live people, and I hear back from people and they debate with me the merits of what I write, that is a perfect laboratory to build a perfect system.
Yes.
And now, mind you, the book, when I first launch it in the next 4 weeks, will be pretty damn close to perfect because we've already done this once.
Right.
And a lot of the content we will be referring to this book. So the new book will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 120 pages, and it will refer to this 470 pages. And in the end, you will end up reading probably about 500 pages if you have a very deep construct, a very deep PMO construct. If you don't, you'll be able to select from the chapters and all of that. So if you have taken the PMO, the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop already, you will have full access to the book
immediately as soon as it's released.
That's right. But like we said, it will be sort of a hidden pre-published version for probably a few years, as we iron out and add to. Usually I don't have to change much in a book. I don't have to write something and then unwrite it or edit it out because I don't write things that are nonsense. And I usually do my homework. There might be some small things that people debate and the language is maybe not correct for the audience or something like that. But as time goes on, I will invariably add to it. For example, I had a student come one of my coaching students, and I printed off just the questions for the coaching session, and it was 3 pages of notes. And these notes are indispensable to me. So most of this I've already addressed in the book, but some of it I haven't yet. Right. So I'll add to it. So if you get the book and it's in the workshop and it's digital, you will always see, oh, there's more pages. There's more to this chapter. Oh, there's new content here. And we will continually be adding and editing and changing. And that's research. So you will have an active research document for years. And if you're coached by me, you'll have an active hand, whether you know it or not, in me learning what are the most important topics of this era. So each era that happens as time goes by, there are trends in the porn industry, there's trends in the sex industry that I may not be privy to, but you are. So that's one of the beauties of this interactive coaching that we've done for 34 years with people. This book will change. And this is why in this book for substance use, we have newer workshops because the trend changes. Fentanyl, for example, wasn't a thing,
That's right,
20 years ago. And we couldn't even foresee that we would have double and triple overdose rates. Right. So then,
well, we
did.
we kind of predicted that in probably 20, 25 years ago. You could see.
All right, bad example.
Yeah.
Bad example.
We didn't predict fentanyl.
Right.
We didn't predict fentanyl, but we did predict that the problem was going to get worse with the misinformation.
But the point is so that as time goes on, you're going to have this active document. And now we'll get criticized that we're not giving the book out to the public, but that's just the way it has to be to do things the right way. And we made it affordable at $180 or whatever it is. And you get the workshop, you get the book, you'll get a workbook eventually. You're going to get 3 hours of us talking with you. You get a presentation, and that way you can solve your problem. And then if you need more help, we have the coaching, of course.
Yes. I mean, I think, when you're doing research, when you combine actual like looking up research that other people have done, which we do all the time.
Constantly.
And there is a ton of research that shows that there's no such thing as PMO addiction, quite frankly. And, just like there's a ton of research shows that addiction is not a thing where you're rendered powerless. That's not real. There's research that debunks that fully. We have it in that book. And then you combine it with clinical research, which is case studies where we are actually helping people, and we can measure and see how people are helped. We can take each person's unique perspective, unique experiences, and desires and reasons. And that information is invaluable. And to add to what Mark said, people are asking for this.
Yeah.
And we can't seem to write it fast enough. But I know the majority of people that listen to this in the world don't write books. Okay. And I think sometimes people have this perception that writing any book is something you can just whip off. When you look at a prolific author like Grisham or Stephen King or something, and you see they seem to come out with books like every other day, it makes it kind of seem like writing a book just happens like that. It doesn't, even for those authors, but the more you write, the easier writing gets. But when you're writing a book, a research book, a book that has to be factual, that has to provide information that helps people solve a problem, it's a bit more involved than writing fiction.
Well, it's also taking what you're hearing in coaching sessions, the live people, the lives that you're touching, and then taking that information, closing your eyes and saying, okay, what is the topic here that I need to address in my book? And so the other thing you need to know is, as we go through this process, some of the sections will be unedited. So there will be grammar mistakes. There will be things like that. because it'll be a work in progress.
Well, I'm going to do editing, but he's right because this book, I did content editing, but we sent it to an editor
and it's still got a ton of edits
and it
in
still has edits, but we sent it to a professional editor to be edited. It got published. The book you're going to be seeing, like just like the Solution to Addiction book that we have, Dismantling the Binge Construct and the Solution to Addiction for Substance Use. It's the general solution to addiction. That is pre-published. That is basically a manuscript.
Right.
And it's just he and I that have done editing, that have read it and edited it and read it and edited it. And that's what this is going to be as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will grow in time. And then there will come a point where the book is so comprehensive. And I've worked with enough, 1,000 people or 1,500 people, and I've coached enough sessions to where I'm comfortable with that we've covered all the topics and all the trends at that time. Then it will go to a professional editor. Then it will be published like this book to the public. It'll go up on Amazon and all of that. So know that you're a part of the research, but also know that after 34 years, when I'm coaching somebody, you don't have to feel like you're an experiment, because I've done this tens of thousands of times, as has Michelle, and all of our coaches have extensive years of working with people on a variety of problems: overeating, gambling, sex addiction, porn, and of course, substance use. And each has their nuance, and we're really, really good at it. But the point is, when writing something of this nature, when there's so much misinformation, and it's so believable, you have to have your ducks in a row. And I want to make sure that it's in a language that people can understand, because we're going to be undoing a lot of the nonsense and bullshit that you're getting every day. And the worst thing that I tell people, if I'm coaching you, stop looking at the web for solutions. Stop going to some sort of sex addiction meetings that are just amplifying the problem. And with this student, for example, there was literally, let me just look as an example, there was 14 different questions, and all of them were littered with misinformation that they had received from the internet and from a therapist. Really damaging stuff that has kept this person. Real simple thing, like, for instance, this was groundbreaking for this person. They would get an anxious feeling, right? An anxious feeling in their body and in their mind. They get a little panic for, really no reason. Maybe just because they had a really tough childhood and now they've practiced being anxious, right? Hypervigilant, very common thing. And in years, nearly a decade of therapy and struggling, the way this person would handle that is they would PMO. They would masturbate to porn and binge sometimes for 6-7 hours. And they really, really felt hopeless. And literally no therapist and nobody ever told them, did you know that you can fix the anxiety, that you can learn how to not feel anxious?
So simple.
And he goes, I got an email this morning that was groundbreaking. He's like, nobody told me. So they've been dealing with the source of this person's motive and reasoning behind their PMO habit, their binging, was never addressed. And with something as simple as, did you know that there are things you can do to get rid of anxious thoughts and anxious feelings in your chest and breathing and heart rate? He goes, no, nobody's ever told. I thought he's like, I'm doomed. I mean, I literally got an email the day before our session. He said, I feel hopeless. And it almost never occurred to me to tell him this, because I assumed.
You assume people know.
Yeah. Something
but
so
it's
simple.
It's not just common information anymore that, did you know that you actually have control over your mind?
Yeah, your thoughts, and which is the source of anxiety, which is the source of your body reacting to it, and so on and so on. And then that goes downstream to why he PMOs and why he struggles so horribly.
I mean, that was his answer to it. Right. Was, I go PMO and then it gets rid of it. But it's baffling to me that I think I wanted to say something else about there a lot of books, the self-help books that are written from a perspective that everybody's problem is the same and that everybody that has the problem is the same.
Yeah.
And that it's the AA theory. You do these 12 steps and you will get a sober person, right? Or you do what I say and get what you do what I say and you'll get what I've got. And like you can bake a sober cake. And so all of these problems are that's one of the reasons we're not just writing a book and releasing it, because everybody's different.
Yeah, so I've incorporated, Michelle and I've incorporated a lot of stories into this new book, so that maybe you can relate to them. And they're the stories that for the last 12 years I've been hearing over and over and over again, to address certain angles of misinformation, to debunk that misinformation.
There's similarities,
Yeah.
certainly, between different problems, but there's always nuance there. And so yeah, we can't address every problem, but we can put enough out there, information out there, so people can see those similarities and then apply it in their lives appropriately.
Yeah, and so people say to me, as I've been talking to them, they're like, "The book will only be like 100, 120 pages." I say, "Yeah," because a lot of the background work, at the beginning of each chapter, I have it set up that you should read select
A certain
chapters.
chapter,
So
right.
maybe for chapter 3 in the new book, in the PMO book, I might say, read Appendix B and chapter 17 before you start this chapter. So you go into this book and get the background research and the foundation of the entire theory that I'm going to cover on this specific topic. And when we build a book for gambling, we'll do the same thing. And when we build it for whatever other problems that we're going to tackle over the next decade or so, we'll do that same approach, and we'll have a workshop so that for the people that need video. And then of course we have the coaching. So we're integrating all of this into a system where you get to pick and get the information you need. Yeah, it's going to be amazing, because the people that are coming to us now are coming in droves. I mean, my schedule is packed, and Michelle is getting booked up now, and some of our other coaches are as well. So it's very exciting. And I think we're going to send out a review that I just got via email.
Yes, via email. That's gonna go out probably today, to the people that have the app and that are on on our in our online programs and have our workshops, so that you can see the tremendous success. I mean, specifically, it's very exciting. The tremendous success with young men who kind of got caught in that no fap trap, and really they felt like their lives were destroyed. I just got to say this, and I don't want to be crass or anything, but porn induced erectile dysfunction is bullshit.
Yeah, but
it's bullshit.
But it does manifest.
It sure does. We're not saying that doesn't happen to people,
but we're saying how it happens and why it happens. I think if you're in that group, you need to read the chapters that I've addressed.
Yeah, or we address it directly in the workshop, the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop. We actually change it to be more accurate, the name to be more accurate.
We make it mind-induced erectile dysfunction.
It is. Your mind is so powerful.
Yeah, and your mind is producing the meaning onto the fetish object of pornography. So they have it very backwards. They have it, the brain-centered people are lost. And that's why their arguments are so circular and why there's hopelessness there.
Yeah,
because you never get out of it. Because if you're the minion of biochemistry, you are fucked. The good news is you're not a minion of that.
It's not real.
Right. Your mind creates the narratives that you run your life by.
Your mind creates your biochemistry.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. The effective brain change is done by the mind and your senses and your environment, not by brain chemistry. Like there's a separate mind within your brain that forces you to behave. You are not run by chemicals. So I think that we're excited to be a part of this. I just wanted to make that announcement so as people are going through this process, they know the only way to get the book for the next few years is going to be through that workshop. So and if you get the workshop today, the day it's published, you'll get a notice on your app or
Yep, that the
through your
book has been
email,
released,
and that the book has been released,
and it'll be available to you.
yeah. So you don't have to worry about that. I think this is going to be a short podcast because it did have to be kind of like a commercial because people are asking about this, and I wanted to announce why we're doing it this way, and that there's a method to this madness. And if we didn't do it this way, none of this revolutionary model would exist. I'm gonna tell a little story, but go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say you have to understand something about publishing and releasing a book. Once you get that the numbers that go with it, and it's in the official registry of books and stuff.
Yeah, the ISBN numbers.
The ISBN numbers. First of all, it's expensive to do, and secondly, coming out with a new edition is not. You have to do it all over again. So there is definite reasons why we're doing it this way.
Yeah, and please understand that I value the coaching experience so much. I value your questions. I value your debate. I am listening.
Yes.
And I know Michelle does the same thing. We've trained each other over the last 34 years with cognitive behavioral education, CBE. That's our method of coaching. So we're educating each other in the process. Now, sometimes I've had a theory or an idea, or I work with somebody and it works for that person, but it doesn't work for 10 others. And then I have to adjust. And then I go, oh, I was wrong.
Right.
I was wrong about that. And that's the beauty of research, is if you have the capacity to be humble,
yes,
you can really find truth. And it's hard to admit you're wrong, but I had 13 different editions of this book that were mostly right and some things wrong. And finally, after 27 years, with Stephen's help and Michelle's help, collectively, we were able to pare it down to just the truth.
Well, and now we've like the binge construct came after this book.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
And that was a result of Mark and I going back into the retreat and working with people privately.
That's right. So I'm going to tell a story that's sort of how this all works. And some of you know that my other passion is hunting. And the way I hunt is sort of in the tradition of the way the Native Americans did, which is by means of tracking. So if you don't know what that is, it's just you follow the track to the game and then you procure the game. You harvest the game. And it's very interactive. And you're out in the wild sometimes for weeks on end, and you're out in the cold and you're up on mountains, and it's very intense. But there's an interesting thing that happened years ago when I was learning the tracking craft, learning how to be a tracker. I met some expert trackers, this fellow by the name of Hal Blood and this organization, Big Woods Bucks, and which I'm now a big part of. But at that time, I was a student, and I was learning from their videos and their books and things like that. And so I researched all this stuff. And then I didn't get a buck for almost 9 years after that happened. And I wondered, why am I struggling? And then suddenly one day I realized that I had lost touch with reality in this way. As I was in those mountains, I had so much information floating around in my head. There was so much analysis paralysis that when it came time to really do the deed, I was so tense and screwed up that I could just never fulfill the hunt. I could never be successful. And then the next day after I had this realization, I put all the books down. I got rid of the analysis. I cleaned my mind out, and I followed the track of a buck. And 3 hours later, I had the buck. And I thought about that. And I said, how did I do that? Well, I followed the tracks. I let the deer teach me. Well, when we started the Freedom Model, it was kind of the same thing. I got lost with analysis paralysis in AA. And
Mhm.
I got mired in this thing, and I wasn't as successful with people. And eventually, and doing the research and trying to figure all that out. And then eventually what I did is I stopped doing that and I started listening to you. I
Yes.
started hearing you and saying, oh, well, you're asking that question. That has nothing to do with air. That has nothing to do with all these modern theories. And then I started to, it became clear. It was like the track teaching me. You know, all I had to do was look at the damn track. The track is telling me what the deer is doing, right? Well, you were like the track. You were the
Yeah.
people that was teaching me how to coach, what to look for, what trends existed, what were the questions that needed answers for, and then I could go figure it out. That's what we're doing with the PMO thing. The good news is we have a lot of the work already done
Yeah.
to a massive degree. And what took 27 years now has taken a mere couple months because we have all that background. So I'm really proud of the fact that a lot of you have the courage to contact us on this topic, because the social
awesome.
implications are so tough compared to substance use. And but we are very private with you. Know that we never, everything is one-on-one, everything is super confidential, and we're happy to help you. So I look forward to coaching any of you, and I know Michelle feels the same way.
Yeah. We love to get calls and talk with people about what's going on, and see if coaching is right. See if maybe just going to the workshop. Sometimes that's what I'll be like, hey, just start with the workshop.
It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, just that information alone, and you don't necessarily have to have read this book to do the workshop.
That's right. That's right.
It really hits the nail on the head. Now, if you go through the workshop and you still have some of that addiction mythology, like somebody did the workshop and they emailed us about, I still am, have the kind of the addict identity. I'm like, chapters 8 through 10 in the book. Go do chapters 8 through 10 in the book. That will address that directly. So if there's some parts of, the addiction mythology and you're like, I'm just not sure I can do that, well, then email me and I'll tell you what chapters to go to. Or discuss coaching with you, because sometimes it does take back and forth talking to someone about it that's knowledgeable and non-judgmental. It's huge.
Yeah, and let's end on that. So I want to talk a little bit about being non-judgmental. Judgment is a funny thing because I have to judge the conversation on being helpful. So I have to be able to look at something and say, okay, I have to judge it. But I don't judge it as I'm above you or that you're bad. I don't do that.
Never.
And so there's a wonderful thing to be able to be open. And one of the things I do when I'm building the puzzle, that's what I call it, in our first session, I always ask, what are the specifics of your porn fetishes or whatever your fetish might be, whether it's escorts or whatever. And usually people have very, very, very specific and to them embarrassing sort of fetishes. And I said, please understand, after 34 years, I talk to people for a living. I have heard some really wild things. And you know what? I don't judge any of it.
None of it.
Because what makes people happy makes people happy.
Yeah.
And then the question is, how can we solve it so that you're happier? Right. And yeah, so that's it.
That's it. So if you are seeking a solution, we have the Solution to Addiction workshop. We have the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop. They're both on our website. Right. Like they're the number one and number two
Tabs
at the top, or in the menu if you're on mobile. We also have the Freedom Model app. The mobile app, you can find it at the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.
And you can purchase the workshop through the app if you
absolutely.
want to. And we also have where people fly in and spend 2 days with us. Now, if it's on PMO, usually they just want me or her, depending if it's male or female, obviously. But if it's substance use, a lot of time it's both Michelle and I with that person.
Yeah.
And that is a profound experience for people because you get our attention for 2 solid days, and we we push off all our
Plus 2
appointments.
solid days plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you fly in on like a Wednesday and one of us or both of us pick you up at the airport, right? And then you fly home on a Saturday and one or both of us will bring you back.
And we're having dinner and lunch and breakfast with you, where
so
the conversations continue.
But
we really drill down and take care of identifying your binge construct, why you do what you do, and then how to walk out of that problem. So there's that option too. And so there's everything you need out there.
I just want to talk about, we now offer our solution to addiction coaching package. So, which is you get 3 private coaching sessions with us, which usually run about 90 minutes. Sometimes they run up to 2 hours, but usually about 90 minutes. And then with it, you get the solution workshop with the solution book and workbook. Or the solution to PMO and sex addiction workshop with the book and workbook as soon as they come out. And you get 3 months of the online program, the Freedom Model online program, which is video lessons that take you through this. Okay. So that coaching package now, if you decide you want more sessions, you can always tack sessions on after that 3-session coaching package. But the majority of people that have gotten it have solved their problem.
Yeah, I think that's the model that's going to replace treatment as a whole. And that's why we call it the solution to addiction. If you have the 3 sessions coupled with the workshop, coupled with the books, coupled with, you'll have there. We also have an audio
you get this book and workbook.
Yeah.
And the family book and the family program. Like it's all encompassing,
and it's affordable.
Absolutely.
And it's massively affordable. That whole package is affordable. So, yeah, there's a solution there for you.
There is. And those are located on our coaching page. You can, the coaching package, and I think they're also on the solution pages below the workshop. It says the solution coaching package. So
I'm sorry that this ended up talking about a lot of that stuff, but we need to do that.
We need to let people know the resources that are available to them.
And when you get those packages, the workshop and all of that, you have that in perpetuity. The only thing you won't have in perpetuity is the online program.
Online program, right?
Which is a different.
So when you get the online program, I don't know if all people know this. Every single month, and we've got one coming up next week. Every single month, we have a 2-hour live question and answer coaching session with us.
Yeah.
It's typically the last Wednesday of every month. And it's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're in New York State. So if you can't make it to that coaching, that Q&A, you can always email us a question and say, hey, I want this answered during the Q&A, because those are recorded. And when you're in the online program, you get to watch them.
That's right. Because you have access to that.
You have access to them while you're subscribing to the online program.
Now, if all of this sounds confusing and you're overwhelmed, because I would just call us. I
can walk you through it all.
The number is there, but it's 888-424-2626 for those that have earbuds in. So that's 888-424-2626.
Yes. And remember, let your friends know about the podcast if they're looking for a solution.
And give us a 5-star rating. Helps.
It sure does. All right, everybody. See you next week.
Take care.
Are you struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, but you don't want to go to rehab or group meetings? Well, that's why we created the non-12-step Freedom Model Coaching Program in 2011. Through video conferencing on Zoom or Skype, you can work privately with a certified Freedom Model coach from your home or office on your schedule. And here's the best part. With the Freedom Model, you'll never be labeled an addict or an alcoholic, and we won't tell you to go to 12-step meetings or hamper your life with endless recovery rituals. Instead, you can learn exactly why addiction isn't a disease and how you can solve the problem for good and move on with your life. Do you want to be completely free from your addiction? Do you want to never have to attend meetings, rehabs, or addiction counseling ever again? And do you want to solve your problem from the comfort of home? Then call us at 888-424-2626 to talk with a Freedom Model coach today and experience the Freedom Model difference.